proven leader, daring entrepreneur, unrelenting change agent, and humble history maker. These are just some of the words that describe this episode's podcast guest, Ms. Ann Dawson August. Ms. August currently serves as the Interim Executive Director of the Central Midlands Regional Transit Authority. The Conference of Minority Transportation Officials named Ms. August one of the women who move the nation. Only 13 women were given this title, and Ms. August was one of them. Many of us spend a lifetime trying to find our passion, but Ms. August is an example of finding that true passion and doing what needs to be done to pursue it. And her passion included other people. As a matter of fact, that was the priority, helping others. Ms. August was quoted as saying, "Public transportation has been my passion for over 30 years. It's my life's work." So many people are trying to find purpose and passion. Listen to Ms. August's story in this episode. Let her story motivate you to find your passion and your true purpose. For Ms. August's philosophy, you can't grow if you don't know. Ms. August is married to Mr. Henry August Jr., who is also a transportation professional who retired from the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority after a phenomenal 33 years of service in the industry. So sit back, relax, have a nice hot cup of coffee, and enjoy this episode of Recruit, Connect, and Inspire.
Let's get started on your goals. Welcome to the Recruit, Connect, Inspire podcast, presented by OneCore Workforce Solutions, a progressive recruitment agency recruiting talented people for great businesses. Our mission is to bring you motivation, inspiration, and thought-provoking conversation from a real-world perspective, inspiring you to take action and achieve the success you were meant to have. Connect online at www.onecoreworkforce.com. And now, here is Denise Nixon with today's episode.
Thank you so much for joining me today. We have Miss Ann August. Ann August is known, and she's very humble, I will say this to the podcast listeners, and she probably would not want me to introduce her this way, but she has been described as one of the women who move the nation and has been honored in many, many capacities. Ann August is the Interim Executive Director of the Central Midlands Regional Transportation Authority in Columbia, South Carolina. It's also known as the Comet. And we have the pleasure and the honor of having Miss August with us here today. And she's going to share with us some inspirational things about her path to success, is what I like to call it when I'm interviewing people such as Miss August. And Miss August, we just want to thank you so much for being here.
Having me.
Thank you so much. And what we're going to do is we're just going to have a conversation, because so many of the podcast listeners are making decisions about careers. They don't know what they want to do, or maybe they know what they want to do and they're afraid to step out and step into what they've been called to do. And so the way I want to start today is if you would first share your pathway to success. Tell us about where you're from originally and how you developed the decisions that you made to move into your careers. And I say careers plural because you have many, and you've still got them ongoing. And so we just want to share that with our podcast listeners.
Okay, well, I'll start off from where I was born. I was born in the suburbs, as I call it, of Sumter, South Carolina, in a town called Renford, South Carolina. Relocated to Philadelphia when I was 6 years old because my mom and dad divorced, and we moved to Philadelphia. So I was raised in Philadelphia and spent actually 39 years in Philadelphia. Went to the public schools there, and then went to Pierce Junior College and then LaSalle University. Majored in liberal arts at Pierce Junior College and then finance at LaSalle University. And then from that point, started working at insurance company when I was in high school. You know, a lot of times people say, well, you know, I'm taking all these different courses in school, and how are they going to work into my everyday life? Mm-hmm. A lot of times you don't realize how it's going to play out, mm-hmm. because you say, well, I really don't like math. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, at least get the basics. Mm-hmm. because you want to know how to count your money when you get paid, making sure that they're paying you correctly. If you're supposed to be getting a certain amount of money per hour, that you can calculate that so you know whether you're getting paid correctly or not. But actually, from those two particular jobs, that gave me the idea that there was something more that I really wanted to do. I didn't want to be a billing clerk the rest of my life. I didn't want to work for an insurance company necessarily for the rest of my life, doing what I was doing at that time. Then, of course, after finishing high school and then Pierce Junior College and LaSalle University, in 1974, decided I was going to go into the military. But I'll back up a little bit, because in 1972, I got married. Moved from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Tacoma, Washington, 3,000 miles away from home. So, of course, at 19 years old, you had to grow up kind of quickly. Took a job working in the evening at a computer company basis. I worked from 5 in the evening to 1 in the morning. And got paid once a month. I put in for a job with not the military, but the federal government. Took tests and passed the postal service exam.
That's wonderful.
And didn't realize that I didn't want to work in the post office. So ended up getting a job back at one of the insurance companies that I worked at when I was in high school. And so I ended up being an insurance examiner in terms of insurance claims.
So it sounds like your good progress and your good work history from a prior employer allowed you to return.
And then decided I wanted to do something different. I read an ad in the paper that they were looking for an account person, a person to do accounting, working with a real estate company where they were building new condominiums downtown in Philadelphia. And so I applied for it and got it. Which I was shocked because I've never worked in real estate.
So in each of the steps that you were taking and the times that you changed your career, you said that you decided to do something different. What was it that motivated you to do something different?
You know, I guess for some people, and for me in particular, I found that you get this little urge, you know, of, is there something else that I really need to do? And I guess there's a little voice that you hear. It says, this is not where you want to be. And I said, no, you know, what people say, you don't talk back to yourself. But every now and then you have to do that. Like, okay, yeah, I hear you. I think I really want to do something different. And just scanning through the paper and just saw it. I'm like, okay, well, this would be interesting. And the biggest concern that I had was not the change in the job, was whether I would be able to adapt to the new environment. Because I knew I could probably do the job. It was just the change of environment, because where they were working was in a trailer at the site where they were getting ready to build the condominiums. So it's like, okay, I'm going from this 25-story office building with security to working in a trailer and sometimes working until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Am I going to be secure?
So you had the trust in the vision that you saw before it came.
That's right. Excellent. And says, okay, well, you know, if God's for me, who's against me? So I just kept on moving.
Where did you progress from there?
Well, after working there for a period of time, then I decided, I worked there actually for 3 years. I'm looking in the paper again, and I'm like, okay, well, there's something else I need to do. So then I went back to what I know, which is insurance. Ran into a friend of mine who also graduated from Pierce Junior College. And she says, Ann, she says, you know, there's a company that's looking for somebody that has accounting background. And so I ended up auditing 17 what I call tanker ships. They were intercoastal, coastal, foreign and domestic and international ships. And so basically I audited payroll for those ships. Got another call and decided that I was going to work with the federal government. So I ended up going working with the federal government, the United States Department of the Army. And I was worked in maintenance, actually. Why did I go from working from a shipping company to working with the federal government in a maintenance environment, I have no clue. All I know was it was a change for me that turned out to be excellent for me in my career. Had been in the reserve since 1974.
Wow.
And so being a reservist and working for the federal government actually was beneficial for me because I got even more credit for being on the reserve side of the house.
Okay.
Now people don't look at it as being job hopping as they did back in the day.
Yeah.
Because if you only stayed on a job 3 or 4 years, people are like, well, you don't have any stability. But in the long run, I was learning different skills along the way and building my rapport with people. I built a large network on these various different jobs.
Right.
So after working with the federal government, one of the guys in my reserve unit was the deputy general manager at a place called the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority. And I was going to work reserve on that particular weekend. I'll never forget, it was back in April of 1984. And when I got to reserves that Saturday, he says, Ann, he said, we're going to be having a internship program starting at SEPTA. That was the acronym for it. And I says, well, what kind of internships? He said, we're looking for 13 people. We're looking for minorities and women, some in non-traditional jobs, and you happen to work in one. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you work at a maintenance shop for the federal government. We're looking for a quality control, quality assurance person to work in our maintenance division. And he said, you fit the bill. I said, but I don't have a resume or anything like that. And he says, well, when you come to reserve duty on Sunday, which would be the next day, he said, take a half a day and do a resume.
Wow.
He said, I can't guarantee you the job, but I can guarantee you an interview.
Wow.
He said, the rest will be on you. What really helped me with that is the fact that when you get promoted in the military, you have to go before a panel. Once you start getting higher up in the ranks. And so, you know, doing that on the military side helped me to prepare for the interview with this panel.
Wow. So each career decision that you just talked about played into your decision where you're at today.
That's right.
Wow. That is amazing.
And so that's how I got my introduction into public transportation.
Okay. So tell me this, what was the deciding factor that made you accept that call to become a leader?
Well, I think it wasn't necessarily a calling, because even as a child, I was in the Brownies, I was a Girl Scout, I was a cadet. So the military side of me actually was already there from the time that I became a Brownie. And I also was a candy striper, so I worked in the hospital because my mom was a nurse. So being a candy striper, you know, you're not getting paid, but you're giving service. So all those skills that you think you're not using when you're in elementary, junior high, and high school, back then, that's what it was called. Now they call it middle school. You got the ability to use those skills. Even though I didn't want a job that I didn't get paid for when I was 14 years old. But I realized that it gave me the ability to communicate with people.
Okay. Throughout your whole story, you outlined everything, even from high school, taking the subjects that kids today may say they don't like the math and the writing. All of that prepares them for becoming, you know, to stepping into roles such as the ones that you've had. You have traveled quite a bit. You've been in Birmingham, Alabama, where you received many, many accolades there, which listeners, she is too shy to discuss. So this podcast started off with some of her many accolades, and please visit the website so that you can see some pictures of her accolades as well. But in all those roles, it took courage and determination to perform those roles. To the listeners who may have it within them and they're afraid to do it, how would you convey the idea of how important it is for them to step out into these kinds of roles?
Well, one of the things that I always tell my staff, and even when I used to do junior league and you know, working with the young people doing career days, I always tell them, the more you know, the more you grow. And if you want to grow and develop in any area that you want to pursue, sometimes you got to get out your comfort zone. You can't get too complacent in staying in one spot because you don't grow that way. You grow by meeting people, building a network, being motivated enough within yourself, because people says, well, I need something to motivate me. No, you have to motivate yourself first. You might find other things along the way that will motivate you, but overall you need to try to motivate yourself. And don't look for someone else to make you happy, because that doesn't work. A job is not going to make you happy unless you have a passion for it. And I found over the years of being in transportation is that you have to have not only a passion for the job that you do, but you have to have compassion for the people that you work with and for, because you do the job better if you like what you're doing.
Right.
It doesn't become a job then. It becomes a part of your life. It becomes your career. And that's what you want people to look at you as, not just another worker that comes in every day waiting for the clock to tick by. And then, okay, it's 4:30 or 5 o'clock or even 5:30, and now it's time for me to go home. But what have you done that day to help someone else along the way?
Right.
Do your job provide you with the ability to give back to people?
Right.
Or is it just a position just for yourself and your family? Sometimes we got to look at things from a wider perspective. If it wasn't for other people to have done the things that they did, we would not be able to be here to do the things we do.
Right, and it's interesting that you say that, because you're one of those persons who paved the way for so many others. For people looking at what you do, because I read out a brief introduction about you being the interim executive director, but you've served, of course, as executive directors for various other transportation authorities.
Yes.
If someone is interested in transportation, or maybe they're in transportation, maybe they're starting out as a truck driver or a bus driver or any other kind of person who may be employed in the transportation industry, maybe in the office setting, and they're hearing this interview and they're hearing about all of your accomplishments and what you've done, what path would they take to perhaps move into executive level leadership with a transportation agency?
Well, the first thing I would say is look within the company that you're working with to see if there are other opportunities there, whether it be going from an operator to maybe a dispatcher to learn something different. Look at whether they have any supervision type positions, whether you can apply for some of those type things. Look at your background to even take additional classes that you might need, whether it be in verbal communication or written communication, because in most cases that's usually a barrier for some people when they go into supervision, is not being able to communicate with others. So if you're going to supervise someone, you got to be able to talk to them.
Right. Not just about being in charge.
Right. Yeah. That's right. It's not about what the title is.
Right.
It's about being able to communicate with them and having written skills. Because if something happens out there on the street and you're a supervisor, you got to be able to write up that accident or that incident.
Right.
And what you put on that paper, you can't put little mini acronyms on there. You got to spell it out, because the last thing you want to be able to don't want to be able to do is to go before a judge and back up what you wrote on that paper.
Right. Okay.
And learn how to document things. Those things are important too.
Right.
So, looking at the organization you're in, seeing if there are any growth opportunities there. If there are none there, then look at other places that you might go that you can utilize your skills to advance.
Excellent.
Because everything is not going to be where you are.
Right.
And that's why I say you can't get comfortable or complacent where you are.
Right.
You got to be able to look other places as well.
Excellent.
And in some cases be willing to relocate.
Right. Yeah. And also, from what I'm hearing you say, is that in each job that the person is in, do it to the best of their
That's
ability.
Right. Oh, yes.
Because I heard you say that, look within the organization you're in and accept positions of more
That's right.
responsibility
That's
as
right.
you're moving up, and not to become angry where you are.
That's right.
And
That's right.
not really do, because they often say that you've got to handle the smaller things in order
That's
to
right.
be given the
That's
larger
right.
things.
But I also had an individual that told me years ago, dress and act for the position that you want.
Okay.
I didn't understand that then, but as you go along, you realize, well, if I'm a bus driver, well, at least look professional in your outfit that you're wearing.
Yeah.
Because when you become a supervisor, that outfit changes some, but your appearance will still carry you through. You never realize who's watching you.
Right. as I'm sure that people encounter you every day and they don't realize the role you're in.
That's right.
You're observing. If that person were to come to you in an interview, you may recall that person and think about those
correct.
skills that they have
You're
exhibited.
correct.
So every day is an interview or
Every
an
day is an
audition.
interview. That's right. That's right.
Excellent. As I mentioned a little earlier in the podcast, there's a lot of people who will listen to this podcast, and they will, of course, have much respect and will be amazed at your very successful career. You now are doing a lot of consulting, and you've got your own consulting business, and you serve in many capacities. Like right now, you're as executive director. You're currently still in your business of consulting.
Yes.
Do you mind sharing with our listeners about your business?
Okay, well, once I left Birmingham, I ran the system in Birmingham for 3 years. And since she says I'm modest about certain things, being in Birmingham, I call that my spiritual journey. I wanted to give back to a city and a state that allows me to sit in that seat because of the Montgomery bus boycott, because of the bombing of the church, 16th Street Baptist Church, of the 4 girls there, and even learning the fact that there were 2 boys that got killed too on their way to church that day. So I wanted to go back to that city and that state that allows me to sit in the seat. So after 3 years of being there, I took my semi-retirement and came back to South Carolina and decided after about 3 or 4 months, there's something else. So I decided I was going to form, a LLC and do some consulting. And then I got the call in reference to this position, whether I would come here and be interim. And I asked how long is interim, and they said no more than a year. And I said, okay, I think I can do that. And so now I've been here since May of 2017.
Okay, excellent.
So we can always learn something. We never stop learning.
Yeah.
We're on a learning path every day we wake up, because we're going to always encounter either a phone call or a text message now, or email, or somebody you walk into or walk up against, or whatever the situation may be, and you never know what you're going to encounter.
Excellent. But what would be the one motivating factor that you would leave with the podcast listeners about, getting ready to reach their goals and just to get started on accomplishing what they have always dreamed to do?
I think the one major piece of advice that I would give is figure out who you are and whose you are. That's number one. Number 2 is never be comfortable where you are. At one point, they used to always have this saying is, are you satisfied? And I don't think anyone should ever be satisfied, because there's always something to accomplish or do. Because the biggest thing that you want to be able to do is that dash from the time you're born to the time you die. That dash is your lifespan. What have you done in that lifespan that you can either leave behind, that someone can follow and say, this person did something that I value, or I trust, or I've learned from. What will they say about you? Other than the fact that you were born and you died, or that you were able to do something that was valuable for someone else. And I think in my lifetime, I want to say that I helped someone along the way.
More than that, you have truly motivated me today, and I know that the people who are listening to this podcast will really be motivated just to hear even just a sampling of your story, because I know that's not everything. That's the part that we're able to fit into this time, and I know that the listeners have gotten a lot out of what you have shared. So I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your very busy day. And I didn't say at the beginning of the podcast that we are actually sitting in the office building in the headquarters where Miss August works, and so she took out time out of her very busy day to talk with me, to share her life story, just a portion of her life story, because this is not the whole thing. And I've learned some things that I didn't know as well. So this has been a wonderful experience.
I've enjoyed it.
I thank you, and we're going to have her back, because she is
more to
excellent. There's certainly more to come. But thank you for sharing your time for the OneCore audience.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you to everyone listening to this outstanding podcast episode today with special guest Ms. Ann August. Please go to the website at www.onecoreworkforce.com to check out some pictures and some additional information about Ann August. Again, thank you for listening today. It has been a great pleasure. And as always, until next time, take care.